Hello everyone, and welcome to my channel. This video is going to be my first devlog of a game I've been working on for a couple days now. This first video might be a little long only because I feel like I should give a little background on my experience as an indie developer. So I've made a couple prototypes now and I'm sort of getting a grasp of all the aspects of developing games. My initial experience in making games is with the Unity game engine and following a lot of tutorials created by awesome channels such as Brackies and Blackthorn Prod. I personally followed the How to Make a Game playlist by Brackies and made it to the end with very little issue. I found myself enjoying the aspects of making this very basic game and getting pretty excited when things were working as intended. My wife decided to name the game
Bumper Death Blocks
when I couldn't decide on one and thought it was perfect. After that, I began working on learning another aspect of games, such as high scores. Following another Brackies tutorial to get it working, I created this little masterpiece. I used some pictures I had left over from previous projects and added them in to create this extremely dumbed down version of Cookie Clicker, except this time you're actually eating them. Essentially, you click this button up top, you get a random number, which I made absurdly high for reasons, and the game would keep track of the number you got and set the highest one you get as a high score. Then I added a button on the bottom to reset the high score and themed it around throwing up the cookies, because why not, you know? Once I finished that atrocity, I moved on to try and create a third-person player controller utilizing another one of Bracky's tutorials. For this, I made a little play area where I can jump around to my heart's content. Also wanted to learn how to increase a score when the player collided with another object, so I quickly figured it out, and also themed it around kissies. Don't ask, my humor is absolutely abysmal. Also, I just figured this out as I was writing the script, but apparently this block shoots off into the endless void if I push it into this ramp. Very cool. Anyways, following this little experiment came the downfall of my 3D journey. I decided to take a look at and try out the Brackies RPG tutorial. I followed the basics of creating the placeholder character and getting the movements all nice and set up. I even created this little environment for the player to walk around in. But then, when it came to modeling the character, I hit a major wall. I'd spend a couple of days trying to draw out the frame of my character and get the proportions right, but would end up disappointed with the result and pushed off the project for a while. The last day I attempted drawing the character, I ended up deciding to open Blender and try to learn some of the tools at least, and came out with this clown ghost thing, and also this weird spiky meatball thing. Anyways, it would be another month before I get that itch to try and start making a game again, or at the very least, play around with the software and learn it so I can make a decent product. Coming back, I decided to scrap the idea of following the RPG tutorial and started working with 2D. In the past, I dabbled in making pixel art and really enjoyed myself making these little slimy boys. This time, I went and followed a 2D platformer tutorial, and with it, I created this little space where you can run and jump around with a basic controller. Not much of a game so far. I originally used this slime and this grass texture to create the level, but decided I didn't like it and created these much simpler assets using Sprite. I learned how to create animations and had a lot of fun creating this little slime guy and his grass. I ended up loving this change and found myself just jumping around and enjoying my functioning controller. After this, I wanted to start learning a different perspective and went for a 2D top-down shooter. This time I followed a tutorial from another YouTuber, Blackthorn Prod, who also makes a lot of very cool games using Unity. After following the tutorial on how to get the enemy shooting back at me and following me, I came up with this little prototype. This was actually the first time I created an animation because I worked on this prototype before changing the graphics of the 2D platformer. For a couple of weeks, this was the last project I worked on and found myself watching a lot of videos about game jams. For those of you who don't know what one is, a simple answer is that it's where many people from across the globe get together and create video games within a certain time period and have to upload their games before the deadline. Some of them are rated for the different aspects of the games, but all of them are made for fun. I became interested in the idea of joining one myself and went to the itch.io page to find one that interested me. And right off the bat, I saw the My First Game Jam Game Jam. This jam lasts 2 weeks and I thought, man, this is just perfect for me, and joined the jam. At the time, I only had 11 days of preparing my skills to make a full game before it started. And this is when I decided to scrap everything that I have learned up to this point. By that, I mean upon discovering different game dev YouTubers and their preferred engines, I did a bit of research on the different game engines and what the benefits and drawbacks each one has. I eventually came to a crossroad between two that interested me the most. Those two being Unity game engine and Construct 3. I was stuck between the two for quite some time, and I liked Unity mainly because of the massive community surrounding it and the vast amount of tutorials that cover practically everything. If you have an issue that you can't solve yourself, there's more than likely an answer on the internet. Then there's the other game engine that's catching my attention, Construct 3. I was introduced to this game engine when I came across the YouTuber Devlog, who participates in an insane amount of game jams, and created all of his submissions in Construct 3. The simplicity of the engine with its, I'm not sure the exact term, but visual programming or block-based programming. I'm sure there's a lovely person out there with a much larger brain than me that can leave a comment with the correct term below, but this really caught my attention. The biggest reason for this is because although I was watching all these tutorials and trying my best to write the code correctly and precisely, I never found myself actually learning. I guess my biggest issue is I don't know how to code. I was interested in it, yet I never sought out to actually learn it. Not only that, but I am employed full-time and don't really have much space to learn while also creating small games in a timely manner. With this in mind, I decided to try out Construct 3 for free before purchasing it. Construct 3 lets you use a very minimal amount of tools to create a very small game in order to learn the basics. And once I had the free time, I sat down, opened up Construct and the beginner platform tutorial, and started working. Right off the bat, I noticed how fast it was to get things working. Not only did it run in my browser, so I didn't have to wait for it to build the program, but I also don't really have to understand code to know how to make things work. I found myself enjoying the process as I would jump ahead in the tutorial sometimes, trying to figure it out myself. Once I had finished the tutorial, I had a small framework of a game on my hands. I found myself getting really excited when I finished the small level and had everything working. I even got the animations to work very easily and was very excited once my little slime boy was blinking. There were just a couple of bugs that I had. One of them was the enemy slime would just randomly fall off the platform he was patrolling, despite there being a collider on the edge. This eventually fixed itself, and the other is that when you fall without jumping on top of an enemy, you die. I'm not sure how to fix it, but I felt it didn't make much of a difference as you just learn about it and jump from the edges of the platforms onto them. There's also no way of resetting the game once you got all the coins and killed all the enemies, but that's fine, and I'm happy with the little prototype I've made. After working on this little project, I decided that I would begin making games in Construct 3. I made this decision purely on the fact that learning the code is a hard thing for a pea-brain guy like me. Construct makes it very easy for us monkeys to start making games. Now that I have finally decided on a software I want to use, it was time to start working on a project. This finally brings us to the game that I've been working on for a couple of days now, and is the main reason for this being a devlog. This game doesn't really have a title, nor is it really technically a game just yet. It's very close to the stage of being able to be published, but I want to make sure it's the best I can make at this stage of my skill level. I've worked on this game for quite a bit now and have a decent product to show for it. The game is a simple top-down shooter reusing the slime asset I created for the platformer forever ago. I created other assets for the enemies, and with two variants, one that runs at you really fast and another that shoots at you while also running to eat you. You have a torch that shoots little fireballs that will kill the monsters, leaving behind a trail of fire as it travels, blowing up the enemies, leaving behind a little family-friendly liquid on the floor. I created a little repeating tile background that is supposed to be a rock floor, as the setting is inside of a cave. I also have a score counter with the fast guys giving 200 points and the shooting guys giving 100. I have a high score counter working as well that tracks your score when leaving the game. I also have a temporary menu screen that opens when you start the game, and a volume slider so that you can turn the music down if it happens to be too loud. You can also pause the game and set it to full screen or adjust the volume in-game. Probably the hardest part was getting the enemies spawning down and also getting the volume to actually decrease. The main thing I need to work on right now are the menus and making them look a bit better. I'm not quite happy with how they look right now and would like to fix them as soon as possible. There are a couple ideas I have to add to the game, such as a new enemy type that will be holding a shield that makes your bullets bounce back, but they will have a slow turn radius allowing you to run around to kill them. Another enemy idea I have is a much larger one that shows up at a lower frequency as the others and is a little tougher to kill. but rewards a higher score if taken down. Also, a mechanic of a campfire spawning around the room so that when your torch runs out, you will have to run to it to relight your torch. If you have any suggestions on a feature or to add or any changes to recommend, feel free to comment down below so that I can see it. And wrapping things up, I would just like to say thank you for sticking around and watching my first video on my indie developer journey. If you enjoyed yourself, be sure to leave a like on this video. If you want to see more progress on this game, as well as see the progress for my upcoming game jam or any other future projects, be sure to subscribe. If this video reaches, say, 10 likes, I'll release the pretty bad drawing I made probably a year ago now, that this top-down shooter is based on, and we'll either show it in the next devlog or post it on Twitter, which you can find in the description. With all of that out of the way, thank you again for watching, and I will see you next time.